yeah. I want to be. So I just hit the live button. So you know, Dan, you're so loud. What's happening?
I'm sorry. That must be the fake plant that fell.
I think that is what happened. Oh, it was loud. But yeah, riding. I miss riding horses. I'm not to your level. I'm at a nice, gentle, I hope the horse pays attention to the rest of the other horses.
And I'm even lower than her.
Oh. You know, everybody has their thing though, you know, and everybody has their thing. I switched it from, you know, equines to iron horses. It turns out iron horses eat a lot less. And their vet bills are less expensive, and if you can't afford to pay their vet bill, they're not going to die.
This is really true.
Yeah.
That's a way to look at it that I don't think I ever thought of before.
It's absolutely true. I've thought about that a lot.
This is really true. Yeah. Don't mind me. That's very loud. That's my voice echoing at me. That's not great.
It likes to do that.
It does. It's awful. Okay, everything's good. Okay, so we're on. Hi, everyone. This is another Monday chat. I am back in Colorado. You can there you go. Wedding photos stuff. Finally home and not in West Virginia. And our guest speaker today is Marnie, and I will have her introduce herself.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Marnie. I know I have a little bit of a different name on Facebook, and that's kind of by design, but I'm Marnie. I know a lot of people in this community know me. I organize a lot of things with the Bloody Molly Cruise and whatnot, but I think what a lot of people don't know about me is I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and a lot of people don't know about the journey that brought me to it. So I like to talk about that a little bit, but I've had my own struggles with mental health my whole life, as well as being raised by a mom with a lot of mental illness. And that, you know, when I finally sought treatment when I was in a really difficult time in my life, that's what pushed me towards pursuing my nurse practitioner degree. It was a psychiatric nurse practitioner that really changed my life and kind of changed my perspective on approaching mental health treatment. So I'm pretty passionate about that, and I'm pretty passionate about getting people to make that first step to reach out. And I know how scary that can be, and there's so much stigma, and there's so much fear, and there's so much confusion, and a lot of barriers too, frankly.
Yeah.
But you know, as somebody who's both been there, done that, as well as being a provider on the other end, I hope I can help people be a little bit less afraid in that process. So.
Yeah, I think that's amazing because I remember going, and I still haven't found a place to be in Denver, but I remember Pennsylvania looking for it's daunting, and it doesn't feel great.
Mm-mm.
And for me, I went through 3 first sessions to 3 different people where I was counselors. With counselors, one not, and she wasn't. At that point, I didn't know I needed to find someone who's honestly specialized with trauma.
Yeah.
And because everything she said, I just looked at her and I was like, "This is not going to be a good fit."
Right. And that, you know, you're right. It is. It's about finding the right fit, and that it's hard and it's frustrating, especially when you're the one in crisis or really in that deep, dark spot, knowing that you need help. And it is really, really hard to get out sometimes, but it's also really important to start the process. And, you know, there's resources out there. I usually direct people to Psychology Today when they're looking for therapists. They have a really friendly website that you can use, and you can input criteria like if you prefer a female, if you prefer a male, if you prefer somebody who specializes in gender issues or trauma or eating disorders or what have you. You can input all of that, and it kind of helps narrow down people maybe in your area or people with your certain area of expertise. And that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So that's a good first step that I usually send people to. Almost every community also has a community mental health center, which is, I currently work for a community mental health center in my county. And that's a super great resource for a lot of people to kind of reach out and initiate that conversation. But even doing that can be really daunting for people. You know, not everybody has insurance, and I get that. And, you know, the thought of cost and the thought of, man, now I have to tell my story again. And that's really, really hard for people to tell the story. Like I said, I have a tendency to just kind of run, so please feel free to interrupt if anything comes up. But what I tell people, especially people with a lot of trauma, is to know that most of the time you don't need to, in most cases, especially early on, you're not going to need to rehash your trauma. You're not going to need to talk about your trauma. In fact, we discourage trauma talk because, you know, what happened to you, and we're not necessarily going to change that, but what we can help you with is your responses to it after the fact. So we don't need to rehash that. And I find that when I tell people that, they kind of take a deep breath and go, oh, okay, good. Yeah. And eventually over time, you probably will, as you develop rapport and trust, if it's somebody that you trust. But knowing that that's not necessarily something that you need to address right from the get-go, you can simply say, I have trauma. Right. And leave it at that. And any provider, be it you know, like myself, I'm more on the psychiatric side. I don't do a ton of counseling, although I do some. I mostly am on the medical side, so I'm addressing medications, right, which is equally as scary for a lot of people. But knowing that, you know, you don't have to, trauma talk is generally pretty discouraged until you've really established that rapport and you're willing to delve into the trauma itself.
That does, like, that would make feel, I felt like my very first couple times I had to, you know what I mean? Like, I felt like you feel like you had to explain why you feel these things or you have these things. Right. It feels like you have to say like those things
trying
out
to justify it, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the stigma of mental health is Absolutely. You want to justify why I am this way.
Yeah, and you don't. You don't. I mean, the fact is we're super complicated humans. Yeah. And there's a lot of different levels and there's a lot of different facets. And some of this truly is neurochemical. A lot of it is neurochemical. And it's just like if you had diabetes or if you had a seizure disorder or you had cancer, there's nothing that... I told you I had to do this on my phone because my computer isn't cooperating. So we got to go for a little
You're good. You're good.
I love it. I love it because I know it wasn't you falling, but in my brain I was like, she fell!
So, now I lost my train of thought. That was funny.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, like I was saying, a lot of this is neurochemical, and it's not a choice. It's not your fault. It's not. You don't need to justify how you feel. You feel the way you feel because of what's happened to you and your life experiences and your interpretation. And the point is that there's help for you, just like if you had diabetes or cancer or anything else. And that's something I really try and reinforce with a lot of my people. Is, you know, there's a reason for the way you feel, and it's not it's not a flaw. You know, this isn't a failing on your part. Yeah. And that's the stigma part. You know, that's so much of the stigma of feeling like I should be strong enough. If I just slept more, if I meditated more, if I exercised more, and while all those things are helpful and very, very important.
I'm at fault there.
They aren't the only thing. There's more to it. And that's, you know, I think that's really important for people to remember.
Tina and I were talking earlier about that, actually, about finding what works for you, no matter what it may be. It's a trial and error. You can go through things about 20, 30 different activities of any kind to finally find what it may be that sticks, and then those little ones on the side. that are game changers. But as you said, everybody's different in that level to find what works for them specifically. I'm still on that journey.
Yeah. And that can be really challenging too sometimes, especially when you're down, when you're deep down in that pit, and like sometimes trying to see out of that is really challenging. And that's again where a mental health professional can help you, although we can't and we won't tell you what to do. We can certainly be there to help kind of navigate, things that might have been helpful in the past, or, give you some suggestions of things to try, or, our role is not to tell you what to do. And I think that's another misconception that a lot of people have with mental health professionals is they're like, well, I don't need somebody to tell me what to do. I don't need somebody to tell me how to take care of myself. You're absolutely right. You're in charge of you. We kind of act as a Sherpa, if you will, kind of help you navigate those waters. But nobody can paddle that boat but you.
I think I like that as an analogy, is nobody can paddle, because I feel like it is, I have that problem, and like, I'm sure I'll dive into it one day, but I do. I have high anxiety as a human being, and I get down in that pit, and when I am down there, I don't see light, and I don't see light to the point where like people might be shining flashlights at me, trying to help, and I'm just like, nope.
Cover up your eyes. And
I'm like, hard no, I can't do anything of that sort. And I mean, that was me Saturday. I had a moment where so many people were reaching out that it almost became too overwhelming with my dealing with stuff, dealing with feeling the way, and then having to deal with people going, hey, what can we do? How can I help? What can I do?
Right. And you're so right. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's a little bit of a new role for you. I mean, I've always sensed that you're a bit of a helper, but maybe being kind of in that, and you and I talked about that a couple of weeks ago, where I just said, like, I don't necessarily have the mental energy. If you pin me down and say, hey, do this, I will absolutely do it. But if you're leaving it on me to say, like, there goes my phone again, I need to figure something else better out here. But having that mental energy when people come to you, and that's a more on a personal level. I've always been that way. It's kind of what drew me to the field that I'm in, is that people have always. I was one of those kids when I was young. I was 11, 12, 13 years old, and all the people in school who had big problems were always coming to me, and I never understood why. I still don't, but I've learned to embrace it, and I just run with it. So but it can be, and I'm not to take anything away from anybody in reaching out. Please reach out.
Always,
but it can be difficult, and sometimes being a caregiver, it's hard to take care of yourself too.
And that's exactly, I care for everyone, and I don't. Rob always just says it's because I've had to be independent and caring for so many people for so long, and that's probably a lot of it. Yeah, I'm sure that's some of it. I'm sure that's part of it. But yeah, it's just kind of where it is. But I do always, even though I say that it becomes overwhelming for me, and people know that, like, there's been some times, like my wedding and things of that sort, where I've had so many people trying to help, I just like glaze over and I'm like, I don't need anyone else to ask me a question. I need 10 minutes to breathe.
Well, right. And you know what? That actually brings up another really good topic about boundaries. And, in going through this process and being able to set your own boundaries. And when you're not okay, you're not okay. And you can say that, look, I don't, however you want to say it, I don't have the spoons to deal with it right now. I don't have the mental energy. I'm not ignoring you. I will come back to you. Yes. I appreciate you, but I can't, I need time and space right now.
Yeah, that's a learn. It's definitely something to learn, I feel. Yeah. It's like I sucked at it. I never wanted to I never wanted to show a weakness of any sort, or like I never wanted to not be there for someone. But this past year, I've been really good at, like, when a friend needs help or things, if I can't handle it, I let them know. I'm like, I love you and I support you, but right now I can't. Yeah. I can't do this.
And that's not letting anybody down. I think if anything, it's demonstrating a good example of setting your own boundaries and taking care of yourself. And there's ways to say it that come across as caring and compassionate, like you just used that example, without, you have to take care of yourself first. If you're not there, you can't be there for other people. Like I was saying earlier, I kind of wanted to turn it around and say, ask people like what questions they might have about what to expect, how to reach out, how to start the conversation, be it whether you're pursuing medication, whether you're pursuing counseling. What questions might people have? What thoughts might they have? I know my own experiences as a patient, but that's my own experience. I don't always know what other people are going through.
We do have, this is not a question, but I'm going to read it. I think I'm afraid to go through the whole trial and error phase of finding what works best for me.
Yeah, it's legit. It is scary. It is daunting. But what I can say is that whether it, again, be medication or therapy, know that we're on your side, and we definitely understand that that's really scary. It's inevitable. Psychiatry in particular is especially difficult. If you, again, like go back to the example of cancer or diabetes, like it's pretty straightforward. A broken bone is the easiest one to use. Like you can go to the doctor and say, it hurts right here. They take an x-ray and they say, oh, look, here's how we fix it. And you go home and you're fixed. Psychiatry and mental health is not that clear cut because, like I said earlier, we're super complicated humans. Yeah. And there's a lot of factors to it. But we as professionals on the other end are also pretty skilled. We usually come close, even if it's not 100% the first time. We come pretty close. But while it is daunting, knowing that you have a partner on the other side,
yeah,
what we want from you, we understand that it's scary, and we want you to ask those questions, and we want you to verbalize your fears. And if you can be clear about it, that's awesome. Like if you can say, hey, like my mom had this medication and she had a really bad reaction, talk to us about that. Like the more information you can provide to us, the better we can help you, and the better we can kind of guide you in the right direction to finding what works for you. And the more you can tell us, if you take a medication, that's my primary area of focus.
Right.
So that's where I go to.
I love it.
You start taking a medication and you're having a really uncomfortable side effect, whatever it may be, please, please, please tell us. Don't feel like you need to be strong and stick through it. Please call your team. We have a whole team of people that's willing to talk to you and say, this is normal, this isn't normal. This means that's not a good medication for you. It's one of the things I deal with the most with working with people is helping them navigate, like, hey, this is uncomfortable, but it's probably going to pass if you can hang in for a couple more days. If you can't hang in for a couple more days, we're going to try something else.
Right.
We have so many tools at our disposal, and the more you are able to communicate with us, the better. And again, I get how hard that can be when you're way down there at the bottom, but circling back a little bit, that also prompts me to say, try, if you can, try not to wait until you're way down at the bottom. If those of us that are tuning in at this point, most likely, we've been dealing with something for a while. Even if you're just curious about what options are there, if you have the ability to make that appointment and talk to somebody and just say, hey, like, is medication something that might help, and what might I expect from medication?
I think that it's good. I don't know. I mean, other people might feel it, and there's some questions coming in and statements that we'll read out loud. But please. I know, like on my side of things, my very first ever appointment with a person to talk to, they mentioned medication, and it scared me.
It is scary.
It was like the initial response to like how much stuff I hold as a human, and I was like,
It is scary. And for a lot of people, it takes some time to come to it. And that's also part of the stigma.
Yeah.
One of my phrases is I want to stomp out the stigma. There's so much stigma associated with taking medication. And unfortunately, I see even now, while we're working so hard to break this down, so many people get that used against them. In cases of, I'm not going to go down that road, but I see it used against people. Their partners will use it against them. Hey, have you taken your medication today? Or you must be off your medication. Or maybe you need to go get your medication adjusted, right? Like, it's infuriating. No. And know that, again, that's a stigma that's being used against you. And it's a failure on the people's part who are choosing to use that against you. It's not on you.
I never even thought of that. That's
No.
that's real.
I hear it a
right?
lot,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Abusive partners or people who are in, say, custody disputes and things like that, where it gets used against them. And I know I'm going deep, and I
no, that's great.
I don't want to trigger people, but I'm just throwing that out there, that these things, people, partners, friends, family will attempt to use that against you. But what I'm going to say as a professional on the other side is, from a legal standpoint, it will not be used against you. In fact, quite 100% the opposite. If you show that you are actually reaching out and trying to address an issue that you have, that's a positive on you, that you recognize that something is amiss. You're not healthy right now, and you're working to fix that.
Right.
It's kind of one of those. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, it's like having like a backup proof, I guess, in a way, is you have like the history of reaching out, doing all you can,
yes,
finding a placement within it, and that's a major factor at play with what you just with that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that, I think that's probably, like I say, we just dove right into that. That's one of the biggest things I see as a barrier to seeking treatment. I see so many people in crisis that are afraid of asking for help for that reason. They're afraid it's going to be used against them legally in some way.
Yeah.
And I'm here to say that it absolutely is not. It is completely 100% the opposite. And that's all just society and stigma that's being used against us. So
I hate it. I'm not a fan. We do have, and I can put it up so people, maybe I can put it up. Yes. How do you find the right fit with a provider? And if you don't initially, does it look negative if you've gone to see more than one person?
Not at all. We're all human. I kind of mentioned looking at psychology today. If you're looking for a therapist, that's a good place to start. Kind of going back to it's hard sometimes to be clear when you're really desperate, and that's okay. But use whatever words you can find at the time and say, look, I'm really struggling with XYZ, be it depression, be it anxiety, be it hallucinations, be it substance abuse. Be very clear about that. There's no shame in telling people what you need help with. And sometimes we don't know either. Sometimes that's the other side, is like, I don't know, like my world's falling apart and I have no idea where to turn, but I'm calling you because I don't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an okay place to be too. Like I said, there's community mental health centers in pretty much every community. You can generally just kind of Google a community mental health center in your area, and it should come up with something for you. There's more numbers. I'll have to look into some of them, but there's definitely more. Pretty much every community has a helpline that's available.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there's an 800 number now that is gone national that you can call. I can get that information to you later on. I just don't have it at the ready.
That's totally fine.
That can put you in touch with somebody in your community. It's at least a place to start. And you're absolutely right that you're not going to click with every provider, be it a therapist, be it a med provider, for whatever reason. And no, it doesn't look negative. As long as you're very clear about it. Sometimes it's really hard to not react in an angry way, or feeling hurt or whatnot. As mental health professionals, we can also only see what you bring to the table as well. So the more honest you can be with the people, be as honest as you can about, substance use is one that I bring up a lot. A lot of people are really afraid to tell me about the substance use that they're, be it whatever it may be. Living in Colorado, marijuana is legal, but we do know that there are some potential implications, and none of us should judge you for that. And I know I won't, but it's definitely something to talk about in terms of your mental health. So, being aware of that. Please tell me. I need to know. I'm not going to judge you, but I might say like, hey, that might not be the best thing for you right now. And that doesn't mean that I, don't like you or don't, anything, but, and it, again, if a provider isn't meeting your needs, I really encourage you to have that conversation with them. I always appreciate it when my patients come to me and say, look, Marnie, you know what? I've got a different goal in mind. I have a different thought in mind. I don't think we're on the same page. You know, I think I'm going to go somewhere else, and that doesn't hurt me. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. You need to take care of you. And I know that's pretty consistent across the board in our field in how we feel about that. You know, we want you to get better, whatever that looks like for you. And we're human too. You know, that's the other side of it, is we're human. And we have our own things as well. We do our best to be as neutral and compassionate as we can be, but sometimes people just don't click, and that's okay.
That's good. Thank you. Dan, do you see any other questions?
Plenty.
Perfect. I'm going to let you do that. I'm going to run away for one moment because my dog is going to fight someone, and then we're back.
Oh, no.
That's not good.
No.
That's kind of, I mean, having large amount of dogs is great. Just there can be ruckus.
Right. Sorry, my phone is acting up again.
You're good. So another one we have is, can you offer advice on how to adapt to getting the strength to go to a PCP and not getting an answer right away? Needing a referral to speak to someone that can help.
Yeah, that's a hard one. My first bit of advice I can say to that is they're doing that because they don't feel qualified to give you the best possible care. Know that that's coming from a place of compassion. Hopefully that person can offer you somebody to go to, somebody to talk to. I can tell you, you know, I'm more of a specialist than a generalist, so I can't entirely speak to it, but as hard as it is to open up that conversation for the first time, we also want to make sure you get the right care at the right time. And if that particular provider doesn't feel like they can provide that, it truly is in your best interest, even if it takes some time. Now, you know, if somebody sends you, you can ask like, hey, I appreciate that. Can we expedite this? Because look, it really took me a lot to get to where I'm at right now. I know in a lot of places there's a long waiting list to get into a mental health provider. So sometimes, you know, if a PCP were to call my office and say, hey, I've got this patient who's got this thing going on, do you think you can get them in? Chances are we can get them in a little bit faster than if they just go through like a traditional walk-in model or online model. Again, I understand how frustrating it is, but we also don't want to get you started on something that might do more harm than good. And that's really, really important in all of healthcare, but especially in mental health. We don't want you to have that bad experience with a medication, for example, and then be afraid to try other medications. And so that's kind of I don't know if that helps at all, but that's a lot of the perspective, is wanting to make sure that we don't send you down the wrong path and prevent you from getting the right care in the first place. So yeah, always ask for a referral. Ask them if they can expedite, ask them if they can call somebody. Because yeah, it does take a lot to get there. And a lot of times we have more of a relationship with our primary care than we do with anybody else. I hope that's helpful.
Say so.
Yeah, they even like Kevin responded with perfect. Like, it took me a lot to get, like, that phrase. It took me a lot to get to this point. And I think it's like how you said, like, to speak up. Yeah. I feel like that's like a really good way of speaking and advocating for yourself. Yeah.
Say whatever words you can. And I know, you know, even if the words aren't perfect, even if you cry, that's okay. Like, say whatever words you're capable of saying at that moment. And I've been there. I've literally been there. And, you know, that's a story for another day. But I know I'm not alone when I say most of us that work in the mental health field have been there ourselves. So we have a lot of understanding for what that's like, but also understand that it's different for everybody else.
You got us. That was good.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well.
That's like every once in a while, it's like a thoughtful pause. It's not a bad thing.
No,
It
not
is-
at all.
But it feels awkward as can be.
Absolutely. And that, again, that's okay. Sitting with that is important. Digesting is okay.
Yeah, it's hard.
Mm-hmm. You know, another thing that I throw out there is kind of a barrier for a lot of people is the financial side of it.
Yeah.
Leave it to me again. I'm just going to keep this as real as it can be, and it's another thing that nobody ever really wants to talk about. But I know there's a lot of people who don't have insurance. There's a lot of people who've recently lost insurance. It's very daunting to think about the cost of these things. Know this, that again, most, especially community mental health centers, have sliding scale. They have payment plans. They have lots of different ways of helping you get the care that you need. Don't be afraid to ask. Again, we understand that that's a very real barrier for a lot of people.
Very touchy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Even if you have insurance these days, like you've got a $5,000 deductible before you can, like, we're very well aware of the barrier that presents. It's ridiculous. And, again, another passion of mine is that particular issue and making healthcare more accessible for more people. But we have to deal with what we have right now.
Exactly.
And know that almost all of these places do have some capacity to help you, but you need to speak up and let us know that you might need some help. And we're very willing to help you with that.
That's good. I know for me that's hard. I hate asking for that I can't do it myself. That's another, like, I want to be able to just pay it. And it is. I was lucky that one of my jobs, and I guess that's something I will mention to other people, I used to work for a corporate bank, and they offered mental health, like, part of it wasn't my insurance, it was part of their system.
Yeah.
They would give you up to 15 visits to a counselor a year.
That's awesome, yeah.
That they would pay.
Oh.
That's an awesome benefit, yeah.
And yeah, they did it, like, they went above and beyond. They would even help pay fees for adoption if that's what you wanted. Like, some companies have those things, and I never knew it. It's not like they taught me.
Right.
I was just clicking around on, like, my, like,
HR
thing.
website or whatever.
Yeah, and I was like, oh. And that's when I started to look, because I honestly probably, even with all of my issues, would never have looked because of money. But knowing I could have gone, I went.
Well, and throwing that out there, most employers, even really small employers who may not offer benefits otherwise, most of them have an EAP program, that's Employee Assistance Program, that'll give you 3 visits with a mental health provider. And while it's not everything, it's certainly a start. And especially if you're in crisis, or if you're, immediately going through something with your partner or with your kids or with finances or what have you, you can generally get into somebody pretty quickly. And I've utilized it even recently myself, even though I do have insurance and I have the ability. I've utilized it because it's a benefit that's offered to me, and take advantage of that. So it's just one more resource for people. If you're employed, check and see if you have an EAP program.
Yeah.
It would be amazing if they all offered 15 visits a year. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, it was. They, despite the fact they were very much a bank, and all the aspects I don't enjoy banks, they at least did that well.
Right. Yeah. Again, you take what you can. So.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Someone did respond, and I will put this up there. I remember considering if all the hassles was worth it, which prevented me from seeking out much needed help for way too long. But I wish I would have reached out sooner.
Those are really, really valuable words, and I encourage you to continue to share that story. I have said the same thing myself. My patients often tell me the same thing as well. It is worth it. Like I said, and I keep going back to, a lot of mental illness really is neurochemical. Like there really is an imbalance there, and we can see this on. There's a scan. It's not really used in practice right now. Hopefully, it will be more in the future. But they have functional MRIs that can actually look at the flow of the neurochemicals in your brain, and we can look at, quote, normal, whatever that is, a normal brain compared to somebody with, say, schizophrenia or anxiety, and see that there's certain areas that are hyperactive and other areas that are hypoactive or slow or not working as well. And so we're beginning to be able to like put that piece together of like the proof of mental illness, that it really is there. And so with that in mind, we're able to kind of target our medication therapy, which is where I've said too, you know, that's why we have that. We ask you a lot of questions that sometimes seem a little strange. It's kind of getting to the root of, you know, what are your symptoms, and what medication. We go through a lot of education with how medications, even within classes of medication as well as specific medication, and how they affect neurotransmitters in your brain. Kind of with that knowledge, and I wish that we were using the functional MRI a little bit more often, because it would make our job a lot easier. It's expensive, it's time consuming, but hopefully in the future that becomes a thing. But when you have, you know, persistent, say, you know, you're having panic attacks every day, like there's a misfire in your brain. The chemicals are not balanced, and so our medication really can help to balance that out. If you have schizophrenia, if you have OCD, that really is an imbalance in your brain. You can't control that any more than you can control diabetes or cancer, and that's where medications come in. And so I preach that we can help rebalance that and make it easier for you. It's not a cure-all. I mean, again, it's not going to make your trauma go away. It's not going to take away your life stressors, but it can certainly make you a lot more able to handle them in stride. Something I've been hearing from my patients a lot lately is they tell me that they're less reactive, but in a positive way. So a lot of people are sort of hyper reactive, especially to the circumstances we're going through right now.
Yep.
You know, they're able to kind of calmly think through something, as opposed to having a gut reaction and kind of catastrophizing and going off a totally different tangent. They're able to kind of stay focused in the moment and keep some perspective. Again, a lot of stigma around medication is that, you know, it's going to make you a zombie, or it's going to make you not feel anything, or it's going to make you falsely happy. None of that is accurate. And if a medication does make you feel that way, we're not on the right medication.
Right.
So.
Wow. I feel that's exactly it. And I'll put this one up there because I feel that's exactly where we're at.
Yeah.
Mental health was impacted by health. And I never even thought about that.
Yep. It's a really great comment. It's actually what brought me into psychiatry. I was a nurse a registered nurse for 14 years before I decided to pursue my psychiatric mental health training as a nurse practitioner. And what I saw that drove me was the huge amount of comorbidity of chronic illness and mental illness, and how the two are so closely tied together. And I work very closely with a lot of primary care and even specialists if we're dealing with like an endocrinologist or anything along that line, just to get the two together. Chronic pain is another one. You know, we have to work on all these things together. When you're chronically ill, you definitely have your own set of mental illness. And the flip side, sometimes mental illness can trigger autoimmune disorders, as that commenter said. Again, bigger topic for another day, but they're definitely linked together. And so we have to work as a team to get those things stabilized. I'm glad you were able to get some help.
Wow. Yeah, that's huge. Dan, do you see any other comments? I lost track. I was in it. I'm the worst.
No, you're not.
I need an adult.
But there's no adults here.
There's no
Well,
adults here.
That's why we
No
have
adults.
you.
Well, we're screwed.
You know, we put three of
Unless-
us together in a room, we might make one whole.
Don't sink the boat.
Don't sink the boat. Absolutely.
Too late.
Thanks. EAP was helpful when I couldn't figure out how to approach selecting cancer treatments and oncologists. I truly did not know how to start the pro-con list.
Can you say it again? Oh, here we go.
Sorry, Tina.
Oncologist, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm glad, again, I'm glad it was helpful, and I'm glad that we're having that conversation. The number of people that don't know about EAP is huge. And so, yeah, I'm glad that was super helpful to kind of get you steered in the right direction. And it can be for something that, I don't want to say simple because that's not simple at all, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like, hey, I'm depressed. It can be like, hey, I'm really overwhelmed with like how to go about this. Can you help me? And that's as much about being proactive with your mental health as anything else. You know, before you're spiraling out of control in hopelessness and trying to navigate the system, you were able to reach out and get somebody to help you with that before you went down that road.
Right.
It's okay. It's okay to ask for help.
I think that's the hardest thing to get past. I don't know, like, what do you think, Dan? I feel it's super hard to ask that question.
It's nothing. It's like anything else in life. It's the unknown. It truly is. You can't be prepared for it in any way, shape, or form. You can try, and it doesn't mean it doesn't help. The outcome can change, and that can be very exhausting to know that a different direction has been taken forth, whether it's by choice or not. But just like anything else, especially within mental health, it's just full out that unknown step that you're taking. And I know it's got me a lot of times and currently still is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm hoping to eliminate a little bit of the fear anyway. I mean, like you said, we still can't eliminate the unknown. There's a lot of unknowns, but hopefully eliminating at least some of the fear of approaching that. And knowing that your team is with you. You know, we can hold your hand, definitely. We can walk that journey with you.
That's good. That's good to know. Because I do think I think it's why we've been like pushing the whole "you're not alone" thing. The feeling of being alone in this is a lot.
Mm-hmm. The feeling of being alone, and then, you know, as Dan likes to say, it's okay to not be okay. And so many people put a lot of judgment on themselves for feeling the way they're feeling, or yeah, exactly, judging themselves.
Right up on my wall.
I know, I love it.
People judge themselves for needing medication. They judge themselves for needing help, and the fact is we all need help. We all need help. No matter, you know, on any different level, and that's okay. In fact, it's more than okay. It's necessary.
One of my favorite comments a few weeks ago was, it's okay to go to therapy even if you don't feel like you have the means to go. Even if you can't pinpoint a specific area, just being able to freely talk to someone without judgment that will hear you and will give you positive feedback is a major game changer to some. And that's it's in the same line, obviously. It's just it's just a different step that many don't think about, that we all have a different line of issues, and some major, some small, but even if you have small, it's completely okay. And I honestly thought about that until that discussion was brought up.
Yeah, I mean, again, really, really good point. Again, some of that is our own stigma and our own judgment against ourselves. You know, I hear a lot of times, well, my problems aren't that big of a deal compared to so-and-so's. And, you know, the fact is it's irrelevant. Your feelings and your experience is as valid as somebody else's. And it's not fair to you to judge yourself against them. And so, you know, even if you just know, like, I just need to talk to somebody. I have no idea what's going on. I don't even know what I need. That's okay. You know, sit and talk. A lot of therapists are pretty insightful in kind of leading you down a path that you may not even recognize yourself. I can tell you that I have a therapist that I've been in therapy my whole life, off and on, and I never cease to be amazed at the ability of a therapist to follow my train of thought, even when I have no idea where I'm going, and they pull something out that's like, oh, like, how did you do that? And how did you know that's what I needed? And so yeah, even when you don't know, if you know that you're struggling, if you know that you just need to get something off your chest, just reach out. And sometimes a professional really is different from a friend. Keep going down these paths. It's interesting. I have a lot of people tell me, well, you know, I've got my spouse, or I've got my best friend, or I've got my mom. But they've also got a vested interest in you as a friend, and they love you in a very different way, where, you know, a professional is able to see you, and while we love you, we don't have that emotional bond with you, and there's a very different perspective that comes along with that. Again, another place where people put a lot of judgment on themselves. They feel like they should be able to rely on their partner. I've had more than one person tell me, well, my husband should be enough for me. I've had partners get upset because they weren't enough for their partner. And so, you know, it's not that you're not enough. You are absolutely enough, but this is a different issue. And that's where a professional comes in, and it's so important to have those people in your life. You know, just like you're not going to go to your mom to attend to a medical problem. You know, why would you go to your mom to help kind of rectify a mental problem? And while moms and family members are very, very supportive and very, very important, professionals can give you a whole different perspective and a whole different line to go down.
Yeah.
I always recommend it as part of my treatment plan. I really don't treat people with medication unless they're willing to consider therapy, at least on some level. I mean, it's not a hard and fast line. I work with that because I get it, you know, money, time, etc. But I'm always pushing that. So
I guess I never really thought about that. Like I've always just thought you go to a therapist, and in that process they figure out you need more. You need that extra.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Huh.
It's a team approach.
Yeah.
You know, there's not another analogy I use a lot with my patients is we didn't get to where we are right now because of one thing, and we're not going to fix it with one thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, we talked about, you know, I know we talk a lot about self-care, and we talk a lot about positive mental attitude, and we talk about that those things are so important, but everything else is really important as well. And so, you know, addressing potential neurochemical imbalances in your brain, attending to unresolved trauma, and attending to just resolving conflicted emotions in your brain is also equally as important. So it all plays a part. And I know that's really hard for a lot of people too when they seek treatment. I see on my end, I see a lot of people who are either struggling to take medication or want to take a pill and hope that it's going to fix the issue. I wish that was true. I really, really wish that was true. But it's not. But all these things they're all really important and really powerful.
Yeah. That makes sense.
They have to work together. And everybody comes to it in different ways, and everybody, you know, sometimes we need more self-care than medication. Sometimes we need more medication than self-care. Sometimes we really just need therapy.
Right.
But to know there's an interplay between all of those things.
Yeah, my first like thing to therapy and medication was my mom not wanting to be on medication, and her whole stigma against it. And she never, my whole life, she never took medication. And that was because she didn't want to be changed. That was her biggest fear, is this was going to change who I am. Why can't you accept this is me?
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's an interesting thing. Yeah.
super valid. Again, a lot of people are afraid of that. And again, medication won't change you. Um, it won't change you. I understand being reluctant though to leave part of that, especially if you identify. A lot of people really kind of strongly identify with whatever they're struggling with too. I have anxiety. I have ADHD. I have bipolar disorder.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. But knowing that, you know, there is that potential threat to your loss of identity, that can be really scary for people to think about too. You know, like what happens if I get my anxiety managed? What happens if I get my bipolar managed? What happens if this isn't something that I can, you know, identify with? And that's really scary too. Again, it's all valid though. Our identity is who it is, and you know, just know that medication isn't going to change you in that way.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. We have some pretty awesome things happening in the comment section.
Awesome.
And one of the things I'm going to go first, and then Kristen, I will read yours, I promise, is Jenny agreed I was in such a good place before, and then everything came crashing down at once. Now I'm out of insurance, trying to find a new path. It can be exhausting being your own advocate.
Yeah, you're so right. It is exhausting, and you're super brave for continuing to push through that. You know, if you have a team you've been working through, ask them. Ask if they have case management. Ask if they have people who can help guide you through the process. You are worth it. You're absolutely worth it. Yeah.
Case management. I feel like just it's all things we know exist. Like we know case management is a thing, but did I ever think of it as being an advocate for myself for mental health? No, not once. Not even a slightest thing.
That's why I'm here, Tina.
And this is why you're here. I would never for the life of me put that together.
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. And I know people just don't know that these things are out there. They don't know, you know, we have case management, and unfortunately right now with a lot of federal budget cuts to mental health, a lot of that's being cut. But we're also very, very creative in our field, and we have a lot of people that are filling that role. I talked about community mental health centers. Most community mental health centers have the ability to say, help you fill out paperwork. For example, like if you're trying to apply for disability, we can generally help you navigate that to some degree. If you're needing to apply for Medicaid, for example, we can help you with that. If you're needing help getting employment, most community mental health centers are able to provide you with resources to get you employed with an employer who is understanding about mental illness. Again, be it schizophrenia, be it anxiety, be it any number of other things. That we have ways of helping you through that and working through it. So employers know, like, hey, like you're not just being lazy. You're not just being, you know, you have a legitimate thing and you're going to work with it. Anyway, I keep going down these rabbit holes as I do.
That's fine.
That's a good thing. I think like normally Dan and I are always worried that we're never going to, we don't know how to fill time. And you just like been rolling with it, which is exactly what we love.
We'd rather hear you and give you the room and space to speak than us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%.
It's something I'm super passionate about, and I mean, obviously, like I said, I wouldn't be here were it not for my own journey. And then, you know, I work in the community. You know, I don't work for a fancy private organization. You know, I work for my community. I work for a nonprofit. I want to serve the people who don't know where else to go and don't know what else to do. So I'm here. I'll admit right now, my mental energy is kind of tapped, but I'm here and I will respond if you need me. Might take me a minute, but I will respond.
No, I literally had this conversation with Dan before you jumped on. Yeah, I feel like a lot of us are in that, we're here for each other, but there is a point where I'm like, it might be a moment. It might take me longer than a normal day.
Right.
But we're there.
Yeah.
sorry. Rob got me this shirt that says "Drink coffee."
I'm having a time reading it.
It says "Drink coffee, put on some punk rock, and handle it."
Hell yeah! I love that.
That's pretty much how I live my life.
Yep.
Same. Put on some punk rock and ride a motorcycle.
Yeah,
I do both at the same time.
Yeah, get it. I do not do that. I usually
That's okay.
My punk rock is I put punk rock on, or honestly, my cleaning music is ska. But that's how I clean my house. I just listen to music. And,
well, I mean, ska gives you that like.
Yeah, it makes you a lot happier doing the stuff you don't really want to do.
Even if every song is depressing, they do it in an upbeat manner.
That's what I love about it.
That,
I can't read that. I don't know why you're showing me
with
this.
psychobilly, same thing. That's my other love.
I love it.
Horribly dark topics that are so beautiful to listen to.
Yes. And then you're just enjoying every second of it. It's moments like that I find helpful for me.
Absolutely. Getting
lost in music. And we've had people say in the comments, I don't know if you can, Dan's better at comment sections than I am. I'm not good at it. But someone said music has been there. And I hear that a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, punk rock saves lives. It's absolutely legit.
While we're here. What gathered us as a community.
Has saved my life, has kept me afloat when everything else was burning. And the one thing I could grab a hold of was the music. And it, I have only found my way into punk rock in the last, 10 years or so, but I've been hardcore into music my whole life. My dad was a professional musician.
Oh, cool.
I was a musician for a long time. So yeah, it's there. And that's the one common thread that just kind of continues to hold us all together.
Yeah, I honestly, I've enjoyed punk rock, and I say this often, and I think I've enjoyed punk rock. I mean, I haven't gone to many concerts until now. Now I've been to many a concert. But before this version of Tina, I went to 4. In 10.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 4. Just not many. Gas on Anthem was one of them though. So I went to things that I enjoyed. But the thing that made me love going to a punk rock show is the people.
Absolutely.
There's something about it.
It was initially fairly intimidating to me, and that was one of the first things I ever said to James when I met him. He's always been into punk rock. And I'm just like, I don't know. The crowd is just kind of intimidating. I feel like I'm judged. I feel like I don't fit in.
Yeah.
And he's like, just be quiet and come with me. And I'm like, oh, I get it now. It doesn't matter.
How do you think I met Rob?
Yeah.
Frank Turner.
Yeah. It's something about it. It's just welcoming and loving, and you would never expect it.
People have always struggled, and I think our outward expression a lot of times is sort of maybe a wall, maybe a defense, maybe a little protective mechanism. It's also sort of expressing some of the nonsense that we have going on in ourselves. And yet, when you express that outwardly, you're allowed to be the truest form of who you are. And I think that's what I see with punk rock more than anything is, people, they like to, be it colored hair, be it, making a statement with something crazy jewelry, crazy tattoos, spikes, whatever it may be. You want people to look at you and see one thing, but if they take a second to just stop and talk to you, they'll realize that, there's way more to you than just that.
Than the outside. Yeah. It's so true. And I'm so thankful that I tell that to people on a regular basis. I'm part of different groups all over. And one of them was like, I don't know if I can get into the whole punk rock thing. And I was like, just go to one show with me. Or join one conversation with my friends that I've met at shows. Yeah. And it's literally not what you think. And punk rock, and the music, it is so vast. Yes, we all consider it this, but I'm sure you can find something in this world that you love.
I mean, to even call it a genre is ridiculous because it's so
so
when you take it, you're talking about ska, and you can go way back into the roots of ska. You can go back to two-tone ska. You can go back to the roots of ska into reggae. Then you can turn around and you can go into crossover with your hardcore and your metal and
First,
pop punk, and like, I mean, it goes so many different directions, and it's amazing, and that's the best part of it.
first concert I ever went to was a ska show back in
Really?
2010. It was Ska's Dead Tour. It was the very last one. And
Wow.
Tobin of Flatfoot 56 is just in the crowd as the
I love Tobin.
him so much.
tall man he is, easy to spot, and just, you know, Celtic punk, and you got
Yep.
the whole variety, and it was absolutely life-changing, and that's what led me here.
Yeah. I couldn't tell you what the first show I was. I've been going to shows since I was in utero. So
and that's amazing, though.
It's yeah, I'm pretty blessed that way.
Yeah, my first show I can tell because there wasn't many. Obviously, like now I can't remember what I did. But my very first show was the Allman Brothers, and I was
nice.
Oh man,
fully loving every second of it.
Very jealous.
The first like big show that I remember going to was the Judds.
Yeah.
And that was like on their farewell tour. The mom was diagnosed, I think, with Hep C, I think. Ooh. And they did a farewell tour, and I mean, I was 10 or 11. But that was like the first like big arena show that I remember going to. But again, my dad was a musician, and so it was just
part of your world. Yeah. That's I love those stories. I like hearing the stories of like something you've connected with. It's like one of my favorite things to ask people, because like for a person who wasn't in the music world, really, like I love hearing like where people were. Or I talked to my husband, who has ridiculous amount of knowledge about all genres, and it blows my mind because I barely have knowledge for the genre we're in all the time.
Right, exactly. Yeah, well, I mean that's how James and I connected too. Really, was on music, and even though I came from a different perspective, it brought us together, and that's what has us all here now together, which is also pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I love it, and that's part of. I'm going to show Kristen's comment. For support groups for her, wisdom through learning from other people's struggles, feeling connected, the peace gained through release. Target support groups are full of people who really know what you're going through.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I just found, and people have read like the one blog entry I did, and I didn't. The internet wasn't as big. It wasn't the same thing as it is now. And I didn't know that I could find a support group of people going through what I was going through.
Right.
I had no idea. And I do feel like that would have helped, or at least got me to the point where I could like talk to, you know what I mean? Talking it out.
Yeah. Well, and even with the internet, again, you bring up another really good point. A lot of people do have the internet now, but a lot of people didn't, and sometimes it's hard for us to remember that there's a lot of people that still don't. Yeah. That's something I deal a lot with in my practice is a lot of people who, whether they're homeless, whether it just they can't afford internet access. I was a little bit surprised myself with the COVID when a lot of people were needing to homeschool their kids, and it was a barrier for them because they simply didn't have internet at home. It's something that a lot of us take for granted. So again, that is a very common thing, even now, even with the internet. A lot of people don't have access to that, which is, again, why we try to do as much reaching out as we can to let people know that there is support. And some people really need that personal support too, in person versus virtual. And again, right now with the state of things, virtual is kind of the way it is for a lot of people. But that's not going to be forever.
Do you find it harder, everything being virtual, like you doing your job virtually?
It's interesting. It's a bit of a mix. I will tell you that given where I live, so I'm in Montana, and I'm in a relatively populated area, but I serve a very large geographic area, and I see people that are 2 and 3 hours away from me. We have the capacity to see people through the whole state, and our state is huge.
Yeah.
So in our region, in Colorado too, if you're outside of like the Denver metro area, access is really a challenge, especially when we're in the winter. Especially we're dealing with people who have limited finances, may or may not have a vehicle. It's a barrier for them to drive 2 hours to come to a 30-minute appointment. I get that. So we've always had the capacity to do telehealth. Insurance companies have restricted our ability to do so. One really good thing that has come out, yeah, they drive everything we do. It's super unfortunate. But something that has happened through COVID is that I like to say it's the Wild West right now. Like there's no rules.
I say it all the time. All the time.
I have, yeah. So for a lot of my patients, it's actually been really, really great. It's a little easier with people that I'm already established with, that I've already built a relationship with in person. But that said, I work really hard to connect with people even through the virtual platform. And I think it's working really well. People are I'm getting mostly very positive feedback about how well online appointments and things are going.
Good.
So again, for people who are struggling and worried about making that connection, know that, it works. It really does work. And if you have to see somebody in another part of your state in order to get seen sooner than later, then do it. Don't be afraid of the technology if you can. It's helpful.
Yeah, we're lucky.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine even doing this like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't, we have a big college population here in our town. And then when COVID happened, classes were canceled or all shifted to online, and most people, campus was closed down. The dormitories were closed down. So a lot of these students left and went to wherever their home is, which is all over the country. And so I'm seeing a lot of people now in different states, which again has not been allowed due to insurance companies dictating how and where we practice. So that barrier is broken down. It's going to be interesting to see moving forward how that continues. I hope that continues to be loosened because it's increased access, which is the most important thing.
Yeah.
If you need help, you need help now. And if you can't drive 3 hours to get to the appointment, that's not okay. If I can talk to you on the phone, or if I can talk to you via a platform like this.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense to me. I hope it continues. I hope it doesn't get so closed off again.
Something to be aware of, with legislation and stuff moving forward, kind of keep your ears on that. Whether it gets brought to any sort of voting level, I don't know, but definitely something to try and be an advocate for is allowing that. There's been a lot of restrictions, both for nurse practitioners and physicians, to be able to practice across state lines. And that, like I said, right now, it's pretty much Wild West and we can do whatever we want, which is fantastic because we can help more people.
Right, which is just giving more people the opportunity, especially with everyone who has commented how hard it is.
It is hard. It is hard. It's so hard. Yeah, we don't want distance to be another barrier on top of everything else.
Right. Yeah. Finding someone, waiting for people to let you in and all of that, and then distance. Yeah. It's a lot. Just one more thing to add.
Yeah.
Oof. But yeah, at least we know it's Wild West. So anyone who's looking, your time is now.
Yeah, it's a Wild West right now. Reach out now.
That's what I got out of this. Your time is now.
That was the point right there.
Well, we are about at an hour and almost 10 minutes, and that's typically when we start to wrap up. So I will just, if anyone has any last minute comments or questions, send it. Dan, I'm going to throw it to you if you have anything or last remarks or things of sorts.
Nice. Nothing more than just thank you for coming on and enlightening us with your knowledge. Honestly, it's a level that Tina and I don't know. We are a stepping stone, as I'd like to put it. We're one that a lot find comfort in. I know myself, with the family we've made with shipmates, with me going to Tina and a few other family members, it's good, but it doesn't mean it's enough, period, or at all, honestly. And it's good to know that we have someone like you willing to speak up on all our behalfs, to let us know that it really is making a difference, that it will. It is a trial and error, but knowing that help is out there, to the level that you do daily is huge and game changing. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure. If I can reach people, if I can reach one person, that makes everything worth it. So
Yes, we will be asking you to join us a million more times.
Happy to. Happy to.
Good.
Gives me some different perspective as well. It's healing for me as well.
Yeah, that's honestly, Dan and I talk about, like, these are my favorite kind of nights to look forward to. They're a little bit more intimate. I feel like we're more on a one-to-one basis with people here in the group and things of that sort, so we can really help the people there. It's not 200 some people and we're like picking and choosing. It's
right.
If there's a question, we could get to it.
Yeah.
And that makes me happy.
Yeah, please reach out if there's anything specific I can help with. Happy to at least try and find resources or send you in the right direction, or even just give you, a bit of advice.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yay! Well, thank you all. I'm going to say goodbye to the internet. Goodbye, internet. For people who didn't see this on YouTube.
Bye-bye.